Well, welcome everybody. Thank you again for joining us for part 2 of the Black Button blending experience. I want to just quickly recap how we got here and kind of what some of our next steps are. So we have of course talked about creating a custom blend of bourbon, and we described the way we do that is we have flavor tanks that we keep based on the flavor profile of each barrel, and it's from those tanks that we create our blends. But with this program, with the help of the group via the survey that you all took and then the feedback provided in the first tasting experience, we create a blend. So at that first meeting, we all remember, of course, we were sampling 94 proof bourbon, but we were talking cask strength bourbon. And that was kind of a miscommunication on my end, that I didn't understand in full how we worked. It was the first time we had done the cask strength version of the program. And typically that's something that we do in person because we are literally tasting from barrels versus those flavor tanks. So obviously the experience was a little bit different. When we sampled, you guys gave me a lot of great feedback on what you were tasting and what you were looking for. And that's the feedback I took back to our master distiller. And when it all is said and done, that's really the person who is most important here, because he's the one ultimately creating this blend based on his years of experience and know-how and that wonderful feedback you guys provided. So a couple of weeks ago, I was at the distillery for our annual summer barbecue and meeting, and we took some time to sit down and discuss your feedback and taste from some barrels. So Jeff, our distiller, before I got up there, selected 4 barrels. These were barrels that were between 116 and 117 and a half proof, and 2 were from one family and 2 were from another, meaning they were barreled on the same day and stored in the same location. So 2 different families created, or he was able to find from them the 4 flavor profiles we're looking for. And that again is the oak forward, the spice forward, the sweet forward, and that base that we discussed, the base being the one that ties everything all together. So at noon on a Wednesday afternoon, we got together, Jeff, our master distiller, 2 assistant distillers, myself, and then 2 other employees who are, like a lot of you here in this group, whiskey, who really do enjoy the more unique experiences whiskey has to offer, are in clubs such as this one, and really enjoyed the experience. So we had several people involved in the process. Started with just a blend of what we thought we were looking for, and from there started making a couple more drastic changes to the blend, and then for the final 3 or 4, just really fine tuning and tweaking the blend until we ended up with 3 that we thought stood out above the rest, and that of course is the 3 that you have with each of you today. After we had something we thought was really close, the adjustments that Jeff was making at that point, we're talking percentages, half percentages even, of tweaking the different barrels of what's going in. So it's so fine and so calculated what he's doing. It really is quite impressive, and you'll see from what you sample here, it even just a little bit of a change does alter that flavor profile.
So just to make sure, basically we're going to be tasting for 3 different blends that each of us received, and just pick the best tasting one. Is that the point today?
Yeah, we created 8 blends. 8, I feel, would have been overwhelming and really too much to sample from. So it was an evolution, and it got better and better. And from the 8, we had the 3 finalists that the consensus group thought were the best, and that's what you're sampling here today.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
And then the proof of what we're tasting is what?
So we don't have an exact proof because we didn't measure it being just small samples, but each of the 4 tanks, or excuse me, the barrels were between 116 and 117 and a half.
Okay, so it's
So
all like basically cask.
It's all basically right there. Oh yeah, it's all cask strength,
Okay.
and it's gonna fall. It's gonna be 116 and change, when the finished product is said and done.
So, and then we're not gonna, we're gonna drink first before we find out what they are. We're gonna do it like a blind.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what they are, they're all the same blend essentially. It's just tweaked. So I don't have, for instance, if you're looking for like the exact percentages, I don't have those numbers, but it's all the same 4 barrels blended 3 different ways. Let's start with the obvious then. Let's start with sample number 1.
We're saving it to blend it again, right? Sorry, I'm late. I got caught up on something.
No. So these are the blends.
Oh, these are the
There's nothing
blends.
Yes, there's nothing left to blend.
Oh, cool. So we're just
Yep.
doing blend number 1 right now.
Blend
You
number
got it.
1, exactly. You got it.
Okay, the whole thing.
You gotta add another picture frame.
Put one more on the
I
arc
actually kind of
gallery.
like how it looks. Yeah, this is the craziest Zoom background I've seen yet, but
that
it's
neat?
pretty. Yeah, that is neat.
So normally, and again, like when we go on these barrel picking expeditions, the way that we do this, when we get to this point where we're actually comparing stuff against each other, we actually have a scoring system. And the scoring system is we score on 3 different categories, right? We score on aroma, nose, palate, and then the finish. And we score everything on a scale 0 to 10, with 5 being just an average. Anything below 5 probably would not want a bottle of it. Anything above 5, you probably would want the bottle to different degrees of it, right? So like with 10 being I must have it, and 6 you being kind of lukewarm to it. So let's do that.
Yeah.
What I would suggest, and this is like through trial and tribulations for all of these different trips, I would suggest let's pour all 3 samples, right? Let's nose them first, all 3, and kind of force rank them. Like let's do the ranking first. Like so, for example, we'll grade each one on that scale 0 to 10, and then we'll force rank. Sorry, from 1 to 3, like which is the best nose. We're going to do the exact same thing with aroma, exact same thing with finish. I'm going to tabulate your scores. We'll come up with the highest score, and then we'll just have a discussion as a group as to what's the best blend. How does that sound?
I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right, let me get that going as you guys are doing it. So I'll take down your. And Rocky, by the way, you're tasting with us, so you're gonna have to give us your score as well.
So I gave out all my samples,
Oh, all right, never mind.
but I
Plan
do
B.
have my favorite from the initial blending experience
Oh,
that
you
I'll
do?
save for
Okay.
last. It's a reminder in case anyone forgot. All of our bourbon, of course, is a 4-grain mash bill of 60% corn, 20% wheat, 11% malted barley, and 9% rye.
And these were barreled in the full size barrel, 53 gallons, or these are the smaller ones?
These are smaller, just 30,
Okay.
30 gallons.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. For the people that love Kings County bourbons, that's how they used to do it, or at least up until now, that's how they've done it. And they're just recently moving up to bigger barrels. So that all that
Same with
flavor.
us. We
Yeah.
started barreling 53s about a year ago, and in 4 or 5 years, we'll see the result there.
All that flavor that people get from like the smaller barrels, that's due to the smaller size in which liquid can live and kind of contract and expand. So it matures a little bit faster in those barrels, in my experience. All right, so let's go around the horn, I guess. And start ranking it on the nose. Who wants to kick us? I can do it first because since you guys haven't done it before, but essentially it's pretty simple. So like, this is, and again, I have a somewhat point of reference, haven't done this all of last week. So those smells are still kind of fresh with me. So I'll give it, no, this is pretty good. I'll give it a 6. I'll come back 7. I'll give it a 7 actually. I'll come back to this. We'll always come back to the first one because the first one is your reference point, really. So
Sure.
We'll come back to the first one. But for now, 7 for me for aroma. Dave, do you want to go next?
Yeah, the first one, it's yeah, it's really got a really nice nose to it. It's
Okay, so what would be your score?
I'm doing about a 8, something
Nice.
around there. It's got a really nice
Yeah,
favorable
all right.
smell.
Ken,
I'm like a 6, 7 maybe. And again, you know, that may change when we come back to it.
the running joke is I always use half points and people don't know that they can, and then they get to me because I do this last. And they're like, oh, I didn't know we can do this. But anyway, I'll put you for 6.5 for now. How's that?
6.5. I like that. 6.5.
All right.
I like
Scott.
it. It's sweet.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with a 6 to start. I like it, but I don't know what the others have to offer, so I don't know how to rate it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll recalibrate the first one for sure if we need to. And finally, Troy.
Yeah, my gut says 6.
All right. Okay. Let's go to the next one. The second one. Again, nose only for now. So since I went first, I can kick us off again. And again, like my point of reference is really right. This point is the first one that we did, and now the second one. So depending on what you want in your nose, this could be equally 7. For me, it's the same score, or it could be half a point below it. For me, I tend to gravitate towards more of a sweeter nose. So this is a little bit more on the spicier end than the first one. For me, more grassier. So I'll give it 6.5, but not because it's bad. It's just because I prefer the first one. That's all.
Complex.
Okay,
I'd
who's
give it
that?
6.5 for the second.
6.5 for Dave. Okay, Ken.
I'm gonna. For me, I got the grassy effect. I think it's kind
Yeah.
of flat compared to the first one, so I'm gonna go a solid 5. I mean, it's just,
Fair enough.
you know,
Fair
it's just
enough. That's fair. I've seen people that celebrate the grassy note, and I've seen people stay away from it. So
Yeah,
that's totally fair.
it's just different, you know. But
Yeah.
like, comparing 1 to 2, not necessarily that it's bad, but it's just to me, it's a lot flatter. It's muted.
Agreed. Agreed. So we have Scott and Troy who hasn't gone. Who wants to go? Let's do Scott.
I'll say 6.5 on this one.
So you like this one better than the first one?
A little bit more on the nose, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, for me, for some reason, it's sweeter, but it might be the mountain ragweed that's gotten my nose too.
All right, fair enough. Troy.
6.5. I like this one a little better too.
Okay. And then finally, the third one. Okay, so that's interesting. I feel like there's a lot going on here. To me, first one is still much sweeter, but this one has, again, to me, notes of green apple. I can pick up green apples. A little bit of an oak, more so than any other ones. Not as much spice as the second one. So for me, honestly, I can live with either one of them. It just really becomes a point of preference. As a matter of fact, when I go back to the first one, this one, the third one to me is a little bit more complex. So you know what? For that reason, I'll go 7.5. That's just me. If I had to rate only on the nose. Dave, you want to go next?
Yeah, this one it's fractionally better than the last one. Go 7 on this one.
Okay. So who wants to go next?
I was up next normally.
Okay, Ken.
I'm gonna go a 7 on this one. I like that it was much more complex. There was a lot more into it.
So you agree with me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Scott.
Yeah, I'm gonna move up another half point, so 7 for me on this one too.
And finally, Troy.
7 for me as well.
Beautiful. All right, now we get to the brass tacks. Now let's actually taste it. And same idea from 1, 2, 3. Oh, by the way, sorry. Before we do that, do we want to go back to the first one and kind of recalibrate if we need to? Or have you guys done it already?
I already did it, but
Yeah, I've been doing that.
I think I used the first one as a base,
Yeah,
and calculate it around it, so I'm
Fair
happy
enough.
with the 6.5.
okay. No one wants to change their scores, right? Just want to be clear.
No,
All right, let's taste it. Before we get to ranking, do you guys want to do palate and finish scores together? Because I feel like once you try it, like you can do both at the same time, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to having, okay, so let's do that.
Yeah,
All
that's a
right.
good idea.
yeah.
All right. Okay, so this time I'll go last. So who wants to go first? Well, let's start with Dave. If you're ready. If you're not ready, you need more time, just let us
Yeah,
know.
I'm ready. Palette, I would do a 5.5 right now.
Then that's number one, right? Okay, so
That's
5.5.
number-
And what would be your score for finish?
So this is the
Again.
first one, I'll start at 5.
Yeah, we can come back to it for sure. On a palette, like we can come back to it if we need to. Okay, Ken?
On the mouthfeel, it's a 6, I think, for the taste. And the finish was, I pretty much didn't get very much at all, so I would go to a 5 on the finish.
All right. Scott?
Yeah, I'll say 6 on the palate and about a 5 on the finish as well.
Troy?
Yeah, I think I'm a 6 and a 5 as well between palette and finish.
Okay, I am with you guys on the palette as well, just because it's the first one. It's certainly not bad, but as a starting point, 6 is a good score. On the finish, I was with you first. I wasn't the 5, but the more I sit here, like I actually, it doesn't have this Kentucky Hawk situation going on. Certainly not there, but it lingers a little bit for me. So for me, it's 6. I'll give it a score of 6 for a finish. All right, let's go to the next one, second one.
Okay, I like that palette a little bit better. I'll give it a 6.
That's Dave, right?
Yep. Dave.
All right, 6, and then a finish.
Yeah, it's a little, I think the finish is a little better than the last, so we'll give it a 6 also.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
be a 5 and a 5. I was kind of underwhelmed with it, both ways.
Scott.
I'll say a 6 and a 6.
Mm-hmm. Troy.
Let's say 6.5 palette, 5.5 finish.
All right,
So you like the smidge better than the first one.
Yeah.
go for it.
I'm kind of with you, actually. I think there's a lot going on there.
Mhm.
Definitely on the palette.
Yeah.
I'm the smidge better, so 6.5.
Yeah,
Finish just a tad longer for me on the second one, so I'm right there with you. 6.5 and 6.5 for both. So that's half a point above what the first one score was. All right, and then finally to the third one. We don't know the proof on these, right, Rocky? You said we don't know.
Not the
116
exact proof,
-ish.
but it's 116 and change.
Interesting. Okay.
Hmm.
I would have guessed it's a little bit lower than that, but it's cool.
Say those drinks pretty smooth for 116.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
very
same
soft.
thing I was thinking.
very soft.
Hmm.
We just came back from, the guys know, from Kentucky, and I think the newer that we were tasting was at 108, if memory serves, and that drank a little bit hotter than this.
Yeah, this is very, all three of them, the finish and even on the nose, it wasn't a big blast of what I would expect from a 116. So it's nice.
Yeah. Palette for me would be like a 6.5. It's pretty strong finish. I'm almost like a 7, so it's nice lingering.
Okay. Ken?
I like it. It's more complex than anything I've had. It's,
Your highest score was 6 for the palate.
yeah, 6.5. Maybe I'll give it a 7. I like it.
Okay.
This is I could definitely see drinking this. 7, and then the finish. I don't know. I'm used to a longer, bolder finish, or it does linger. It's nice. So I would probably go a 6 on the finish.
Fair enough. Scott?
I think I'm gonna go with a 7 on the palate.
Mhm,
This one hangs around for me on the
Mhm.
finish. I think 7.5.
mhm. Troy?
Yeah, same for me. 7 on the
Seven.
palate. I like, yeah, the finish was, it hung around. Yeah, 7.5 on the finish.
Definitely longer finish than the first two for me as well. So my highest was 7.5. I'll give it a 7. And then the palate. I go 7 as well. Yeah, I kind of like it the best out of the 3. I think it's the more complex one, has a lot going on. So, but that's just me. All right, so let's do this. As I'm tabulating the scores, why don't we have a little discussion as to like, and by the way, feel free to refill your glasses if you'd like. Some of these things have a chance to actually breathe. So sometimes when I get back to the first one, a lot of times actually that happens. The first one completely scores differently. So let's have a discussion as to like, what would be your preference out of those 3, given everything? And then I'll give you the scores. Just give me 1 second to tabulate everything.
And if anyone's interested, I do have actually the percentage breakdown of the 3 blends.
Yeah, well, I'm
Yeah.
curious.
So the first one was 20% from the sweet barrel, 20% from the spice barrel, 35% from the oak barrel, and 25% of the base.
Okay.
So again, that's 20, 20, 35, and 25. Sweet, spice, oak base. The second one, we upped it to 30% from the sweet barrel and 28% to the spice barrel. And we dropped the oak to 27 and the base to 15. And then for the last one, it was a very slight tweak to the second. Same 30% sweet. This time 29% on the spice and just 26% on the oak, and the same 15% base. So you see there was just such a, just 2 of the elements changed, and just very slightly, but how it completely altered what you ultimately tasted.
Right. That all makes sense. I mean, to me, the first one, I don't know, everybody is different, obviously. So like we might be all over the place, but like to me, the first one was obviously the oakiest, I thought. I thought it was overwhelmingly oaky on the nose, especially. A little less so on the palate, and then like the finish just evaporated really quick, which kind of makes sense given, I think, the ratios. And then now that you've explained it or laid it out, I mean, it makes perfect sense in like the progression. Number 2 was like, okay, oakiness came down, a little bit more sweet, a little bit more spice, but like still wasn't really where I personally like to see things. And then number 3 to me was like the closest to where, like, if it's a bottle I'm going to buy, number 3 is the bottle I would buy. Right. Like that's, I would almost like to see a little bit like, I don't know, a 32 sweet spice, and then bring down the oak and the, maybe distribute the oak and the base a little bit more evenly. But otherwise, like number 3 is the thing that I think is like, for my palate, like the quintessential, bourbon that I'm looking for.
I will say at barrel strength, these have a lot more body. They're just richer. And
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
less of the pencil shavings to me come through, less of the rawness.
Mhm.
It kind of took that out for me.
I mean, all 3 of them are way more complex in flavors than the 84s that we had last time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, last time it was like they were like watery almost.
Yeah, and me being more familiar with the brand, because I've tried their stuff before, especially their like limited edition stuff, like last samples did not do it any justice, for sure. These are more on profile for the brand. So I do have the scores. So let's do this. On the aroma, on the nose, the highest score was actually the last one, number 3, by full 2 points, which in a small sample size like this actually matters. On the palette, again, number 3 went out by 5 points. It like was night and day between the first and the third, and 4 points was the difference between the second and the third. We all like number 3 better on the palette. I feel this is unanimous. And lastly, on a finish, it also had the longest finish, again, by a long shot.
Yeah.
So score-wise, number 3 is a clear winner. I think Troy already kind of spilled his beans, and he said, you know, number 3 would be his choice if he had to buy a bottle. What do you guys think?
I agree completely on that one. Number 3 is
Yeah.
it seems to be the most complex. It seems to be more satisfying on all 3 areas that we looked at. So
Do me a favor, hold your glass now and smell it. It had a chance to kind of sit in the glass a little bit, at least for me. It opened up a bit, and now you're getting even more of a nose, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so, all right, Ken is number 3 as well. Dave?
Yeah, number 3. Yeah,
Okay.
all around, it was very good.
Scott?
Yeah, I'll agree. I think number 3 is the best of the 3.
I am in the same, so it's unanimous. Number 3, I mean, to me, it's more rounded bourbon. It has pretty much everything going on for it. But you know, who would have thought that like a little tweak in the formula can make such a big difference? So there we are. Rocky, what's your favorite?
So it is unanimous because that was my favorite as well. And in fact, we, like I said, we went 8 blends deep. And the last 2, we were just trying to, we all loved 6, but thought maybe we can get more out of it, and actually did it a disservice and decided that this was the clear-cut favorite. So
Okay.
yeah, in your group and in ours, that was the one that stood out.
Is that why it was a smaller sample bottle too?
I mean,
Actually,
Okay.
my number 2 leaked out a little bit, so it was, but I still got a great sample out of it. So
Mine were
good.
just smaller. So,
oh, they're just smaller.
my number 3 was a smaller bottle.
Ken, I think
Oh
you're
yeah,
only.
so I was wondering who was going to get that one. I needed
Luck of
21
the draw.
bottles, and they ship them in 20s. So I was like, I gotta make do with what I have.
That's
Yeah,
all
you're
right.
only a state away from me. I'll send you mine if you'd like.
That's all right.
That's delicious. It really is. It's so much
That was a good one.
better.
So I normally wouldn't do this, but for the brand like this one, and Rocky, don't take it the wrong way, it's not exactly a household brand, right? You guys are pretty well known in New York State, but outside of it, people might not realize how good of a product you guys actually produce. And again, like I'll sing your praises just because you guys do everything on the farm. Like it's truly grain to glass process, right? And it kind of shows. But for the panel here that are tasting for the first time, and now you've gone through this a second time, first time being diluted, this is cask strength. What's your overall impression of the brand, and how would you suggest a bottle of what we just picked to a fellow bourbon drinker?
Well, I would have no problem. I had no problem after the first one saying I didn't really want anything to do with any of the first samples. I had no problem with that. With this one, I really like what you've presented. And really, I can't really make a judgment on a bottle until I have it, until I open it and fresh taste it, and then let it sit for a while. And I will truly be looking forward to getting bottle number 3 and giving it a real fair shake. I'm looking forward to it.
Fair enough. Thank you. I do appreciate the candor, by the way. That's the name of the game.
That is, yeah, I can't, I mean,
Ditto.
I really didn't want to, Rocky, I apologize for the first one. Maybe it was a misunderstanding.
No.
But the 84 just doesn't do it justice. So
I couldn't agree more.
That's our fault for bringing training wheels to the motorcycle club.
And Rocky, make sure Alex sees this, because I'll let a cat out of the bag a little bit. As you guys know, we're kind of working on this big NFT membership project towards the end of the year. Hopefully launch it at the end of the year. Black Button is going to be one of our partner brands where we going to get to do something like this in person at their beautiful distillery, and we're going to basically have a chance to blend it. Well, I guess watch their master distiller blend, but definitely lend a helping hand. And they're going to release a prime barrel specific blend with a custom label bearing our NFT art. So it's truly going to be a unique experience moving next year. But in kind of like going back and forth with the guys behind the curtain, for the longest time, it was like, look, if you want to do your own blend, it's going to have to be proofed down to 94. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
No.
My guys will never go for it.
No.
It's just, it's not that type of club. So make sure Alex sees this.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I know how Ken feels. Troy, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I the first one, I almost thought, now thinking back to our first conversation and like our first tasting, if I hadn't heard from the rest of the group and didn't know we were in consensus, I would almost think like my palate was busted because the first one was so much different. And yeah, so now obviously, again, I'm more of a barrel strength drinker. So like this definitely, I think, does it all justice. It's interesting too that like I feel like the order in which we went, it's a little ironic that 1, 2, and 3, and it ended up being the third one that was the best. So I mean, maybe you guys knew that all along. I don't know, but I agree. Like if number 3 came out, I would be more than happy to buy and recommend bottles. As said before, like I'm curious to see, like it's one thing to crack it open fresh and drink it and enjoy it, but like I want to come back to this after that bottle's been open for a month, and see where it is. That's when we're really going to know what this does. And
exactly.
yeah, I mean, this is a bottle that I would be happy with. And to be fair, like I'm pretty hard on a lot of small brands. There's not a whole lot of craft bourbons that I try them all. There's very few that I like. And I would put this up there with, I think, some of my favorites, especially once I get my hand on a real bottle. Like, I think there's something special there.
Thank you. Well, you should be thanking them, not me. It's not my brand.
And it's from New York. That's the thing that's, I'm a Red Sox fan, so this is.
Oh,
boy. Thing.
Every time somebody brings that up, there was a famous commercial. I can't remember the brand, but it went something like, New York, what do they know about, I think it was Chile or something.
It was
Right.
El Paso.
El Paso, yeah.
El Paso, New York. Hey, I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm a Massachusetts guy originally. I live in Arizona now, but no, this is wonderful stuff. And New
I'm
York's-
from Philly. I hate all New York-based teams too. So it's okay.
Right on.
Anyway, all right. So anybody else wants to, opine? What I think we're all in agreement here.
Yeah,
I mean, go ahead.
all right. Yeah, I mean, the first experience, I was a bit apprehensive about tonight, but I'm glad that we had it the way we had it for tonight, honestly. The total night and day for me. All 3 actually were good. The third, obviously, to me was the best. But just like I said, they had more, umptiousness or whatever you want to call it.
Umptiousness.
How's that?
Good word.
That needs to be put on the label.
Yeah, it does.
Umptiousness.
Hey, sticker idea. Yeah.
I'm curious. I know you've been doing the blends. With what you came up with here, how often have you come up with that kind of an arrangement or close to it with other groups that you've done? Just to know. I mean, like Maker's Mark, they have, with the private select 1001 different combinations. Kind of, if you look at your data, where have you come up with this zone, or is it?
So we only launched this program at the end of last year. And I want to say the blend we worked on was number 25.
Okay. All right.
So, but
what about these ratios versus
Yeah.
others? How close are they? Or is it, I know every group has their own thing, but have you been in a similar zone overall with your other blends or groups?
I haven't been involved in enough of them myself, so I don't have that specific data as far as how close they are to some of the others. But
Okay.
of those 25, this would be only I want to say third at Cask strength. So it's
okay.
going to be one of the most unique that we've done.
Okay, I appreciate it. I was just curious.
And by the way, that's a good takeaway, Rocky, for the brand as well. I know you guys are treating this almost as a beta program at this point, right? You're trying to kind of find your sweet spot for doing these things in person and virtually. To draw a parallel, that was just mentioned with Maker's Mark again. Again, we're using Maker's Mark because they have one of the most unique private select programs in the market. Like they actually do blend, and they do have 1,001 different formulas. They actually make the formula a very key part of the branding of that bottle. It's right on the bottle. People can see your formula. And if you've had a bottle that you really love with a specific formula, you kind of tend to gravitate towards similar types of formulas to the point where this is going to be our second Maker's Mark select. We were actually getting dangerously close to our original formula, where I kind of had to step in and say, you know what, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's try something else. Glad I did, because we were able to recreate our original formula from the first pick. Now with a completely different group of guys. Now, probably because they picked a different formula, they gravitated towards the first one better. They're like, oh, this is miles better than the first one, but they're the ones that picked it. But having said that, it's an interesting data point for the distillery to have, just to see where the sweet points are as you creating those blends, right? So another takeaway for you guys to kind of like understand where people are in terms of the range of all of these different tasting profiles. Make sense? Cool.
Yep.
All righty. I mean, that really concludes it. I mean, I think it was a good save on the part of Black Button, as you've heard.
Yeah, no doubt.
If we hadn't done this, I think none of these guys would ever pick up a bottle of Black Button. Now you have
Absolutely
5
not.
different buyers.
Well,
Yeah, and hopefully more so, right? So from operational standpoint, when can we expect these to actually see those bottles?
Say it again.
When can we expect to see those bottles?
6 to 8 weeks,
Okay, that's fine.
I want to say.
Okay.
And this will be
That's fair
listed on
enough.
Prime Barrel.
Possibly
Yes.
quicker,
Yes.
because after we dumped these barrels, Jeff kind of had nothing to do with them, so he really wants to get them moving. So he might move this towards the top of his list,
Okay.
free up some
Okay.
space in the distillery. So yeah, we can get it done for you quick.
yeah,
And
don't
then-
sell this barrel.
No. These 4 barrels are set aside, waiting on my word.
Okay. Do you wanna be a little bit of Steve's Jobs and do one more thing in terms of what you and I talked about, as in like an extra gift?
Yes, so I was just about to mention. So I wanted to make this for you guys an even cooler experience and kind of give you guys something else to take home with you. So what we're going to do is with your bottle purchase, you're going to receive a custom engraved Black Button Distilling rocks glass. So what I'll need from each of you is what message you want on that glass. So you have some limitations. It's
I already
20
know.
characters, and I'll send
Umptiousness.
this again in email.
Umptiousness. That's it. Figure out the spelling.
I'll spell it out for you. There's really no wrong way to spell it.
Yeah, whatever you spell, umptiousness.
Dude, but we gotta go. I was gonna go with Brian Barrel, but that's too easy.
That's too easy.
Umptiousness.
No,
Yeah.
glass of umptiousness. That's what
A
it has to
glass
say on the
of
side.
umptiousness,
I'll be
yeah.
trademarking this tomorrow. So
Do it.
Everyone involved in the selection can get the custom one, and then we'll do prime barrel ones for the general crowd.
Fair enough.
But you guys can have your custom engraved. So if you want to start thinking about a message, it's 20 characters,
I'm serious about this.
letters,
That's a bumptious
numbers,
Yeah.
some special characters.
that would be about 20 letters probably.
Yeah,
I'll come up with a spelling for you.
I'll do
Prime
that
barrel
later.
fits umptiousness, then that's good. But if not, just umptiousness.
Yeah, it has to say that. Come on.
I
Yeah.
mean, are we thinking UMPTIOUS? Is that how with NESS on the end? Is that how we do umptiousness?
Yeah,
What
Yeah,
we're
I
thinking
think
in
that
terms of
sounds
spelling?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
yeah. How many letters is prime barrel? You can put that on there, maybe also, or who knows?
That's 10, right? Prime Barrel, no, 11, right? Barrel, yeah, 11.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Oh. I'll calculate the length of umptiousness and we'll try to work that in. At least for our
I'm telling you
glasses.
right now,
I'm already doing it. Let's see here.
Michael, I'm telling you right now. that
What
could
is
be
it?
A T-shirt.
One,
That could be a prime barrel T-shirt.
so
Umptiousness.
12
Boom.
characters.
We
You
could
know what?
own- We could own.
Can I get a
this.
percentage now?
For every 500 t-shirts, you get a bottle or something crap like that. You know?
Yeah.
Hey,
I
you got a
think-
deal.
I think we can fit majestic umptiousness, which I kind of like the sound of.
Last mess. I mean, I'm happy with the selection. Honestly, I'm not just saying because Rocky's here. I really I knew the brand. As I said, I had some experience with it before, and so the first set of samples did not do it justice. So I was anxiously awaiting these, and I'm happy we've done this. So one of the reasons I love to do these things is because it gives me an opportunity to level set my palate against yours, right? Because you never know who's picking these barrels. And a lot of times when we go on these trips, like these guys, oh, you know what? Like my palate completely aligns with Michael's or whatever, or it doesn't. And so I'll be able to more trust them with the future pick. So like, this is another benefit of all of this. So I appreciate your time. Hope
and I love it as well, because I
Yeah.
learned more about my brand, just hearing from people like you who are experience it. It really helps me be better.
Rocky, 3 empties. So,
There you go. Nice.
Good
Beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
yeah, and you know what? They're all good, but 3 was better. So
I appreciate your time. Looking forward to getting this into your hands. All right. Awesome.
thank you.
Thanks again, Rocky.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everybody.
putting up with
Great
us.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Yep.
Cheers.